was because of the greed, their obsessive attachment to the dunya, that they were willing to kill Sayyidu Shuhada for the dunya. And they thought that they would live for so many years, that they could enjoy the dunya even after killing Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The Imam stood on the day of Ashura. Who narrates this? You can find this even in Sunni books. For example, the book of Ibn Asakir. Ibn Asakir was a Sunni historian. He mentions this hadith in his book, Tarikh Dimashq. He says that on the day of Ashura, Imam al-Hussein stood and he spoke to his enemies. He's trying to knock some sense into them. I'm the grandson of Rasulullah, and you're killing me, and you want the shafa'ah of my grandfather. This is the contradiction. And then he told them this: beware, O people, that this dunya deceives you, the shaitan deceives you. Do not be fooled by the dunya. Do not be fooled by the shaitan. Do not think that you are immortals. A day will come in which you will die, and Allah will hold you accountable. And then he said these words. He says, and no, if there was anyone that was to be immortal, that would have been the prophets. If Allah wanted anyone to have an infinite life, it would be the prophets. Prophets died. You don't think you will die? My grandfather Rasulullah, the greatest creation, died. So that means you will also die. Think about your akhirah. Think about your qabr before you decide to kill me. He told them this. But unfortunately, as we mentioned last night, some people, their hearts and their ears, there is a seal on it. No matter how many signs they see, it will never affect them. How did they reply to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? They replied by throwing arrows and spears at Sayyid al-Shuhada. Allahu Akbar. And Imam al-Hussein used the same way, the same means to comfort Sayyida Zainab, his sister, Bibi Zainab alayhi salam. Al-Shaykh al-Mufid narrates this in Al-Irshad. He narrates this from Imam Zayn al-Abidin. He says, on the night of Ashura, I was very sick. I was laying in the tent, and I heard my father, Imam Hussein, I heard him recite lines of poetry that only someone who's about to die would recite. Someone who knows he will die, they recite these lines of poetry. What did the Imam recite? Ya dahru uffin laka min khalili, kam laka bil ishraq wal asili, min sahibin, min talibin, أو صاحب قتيل والدهر لا يقنع بالبديل وإنما الأمر إلى الجليل وكل حي سالك سبيل. He spoke about how this dunya will never let you go. In the end, it will take you and you will die and leave. He read it in a line of poetry. He says, this is when I understood that Imam al-Hussein will definitely die tomorrow. That the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's set in stone. My father will be killed for sure on the day of Ashura. He says that I wanted to cry, but I didn't cry because I did not want to cry in front of my father. He says, my aunt Zainab, Bibi Zainab alayha salam, she's so emotional. She overheard her brother Abu Abdullah. When she heard him reciting these words of poetry, she started to cry and lament. She came to him, Abu Abdullah, you are eulogizing yourself. You are reading your own obituary. That means you will die, ya Abu Abdullah, and leave us all alone. And then she began to cry and say, Wa Muhammadah, today it's as if my mother Fatima has died. It's as if my father Ali has died. My brother Hassan has died. Abu Abdullah, if you leave us, who will we have after you? Because when Rasulullah died, we had Fatima. When Fatima died, we had Amir al-Mu'mineen. When Amir al-Mu'mineen died, we had Imam Hassan. When Hassan died, we had Hussein. If you die, who will we have after you, Abu Abdullah, to look after us? And Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he used the same strategy to comfort Bibi Zainab. He told her, Bibi Zainab, you will suffer after me, but remember that a time will come in which the suffering will end. This dunya will come to an end, and Allah Azza wa Jal, He will compensate you for all the masaib that you see, and He will hold your enemies accountable. And this is a lesson for anyone that is suffering. Maybe the pain is too much, but know that a day will come in which the pain will end, and Allah Azza wa Jal will reimburse you and compensate you in such a great way for all the suffering that you are going through in your life. He comforted Bibi Zainab alayha salam. Even though, yes, Bibi Zainab alayhi salam died a few years after Karbala Ashura, and she was finally relieved from the miseries of the dunya, but the calamities and the Masaib that Bibi Zainab saw after Imam Hussein alayhi salam died, wallahi, they were so great that mountains could not handle it. That's why Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, he says on the night of Ashura, I saw my aunt Zainab, she was praying Salatul Layl, Allahu Akbar. Even night of Ashura, Sayyidah Zainab, she was focused on her ibadah. I saw her praying, but she was sitting and praying. I asked her, why are you sitting, my dear aunt? She says, because I have no energy. Because all the Masaib I saw on the day of Ashura, my brother Hussein shimmer on his chest, and then I see the head of my brother Hussein on a spear. How can I have energy now to pray? But yet she prayed sitting. Allahu Akbar. But you know what was one of the most difficult times that Bibi Zainab alayhi salam went through? It was when she had to leave Karbala, because she didn't want to leave the body of Hussein. It was so difficult. How can I leave Hussein? There is no kafan, there is no ghusl, he's not been buried, I just leave him. This was so hard on the heart of Bibi Zainab, to leave Hussein like that, mutilated on the sands of Karbala. The enemies on the 11th of Muharram, they forced all the women, the orphans, to ride the camels to go. Bibi Zainab and Kulthum, they would help all the other women and the orphans to mount the camels, until only Zainab remained. And who? Kulthum. Kulthum said to her sister Zainab, let me help you mount the camel. It's difficult to mount a camel by yourself, especially for a woman. She told her, let me help you. Bibi Zainab said, no, I have to be the last one. Let me help you. So Kulthum told her, but if you help me mount my camel, then who will help you? This is when Bibi Zainab alayha